Yeah, it is another episode of the Autumn Windbags. RJ Clifford, Juan Soto here, halfway through July, halfway through summer, just 61 days away until opening day for the Raiders, Allegiant Stadium, prime time, Monday Night Football, full of fans. I don't think we have a player on the roster with the number 61.
It was Hudson, but
It was Hudson, and it should be. We'll remember it. It's almost like retiring his jersey during our little
in memoriam.
Yeah, exactly. That's how we'll remember you. The guy that wasn't here to let us know we're 61 days away from opening day.
Fond memories. Look back, fond memories.
So let's start with the recent news. This news is coming down the wire today on the 14th.
I'll be to live. It's a serious thing, but
and yet you're still laughing.
I don't know, man.
Shit.
I am.
Former Seahawks cornerback and a guy kind of tied to the Raiders, Richard Sherman, because obviously played in Seahawks under Gus Bradley.
Sherman.
And Gruden did that podcast with Collinsworth and Sherman, and that's when we got the term alpha presence.
Alpha presence.
That I love so much.
Oh, so good.
God. I'm telling you, Gruden can sell anybody anything. We're looking for an alpha presence. Sherman,
if you know somebody,
do that? Do you know someone who can play that? Yeah, sign me up, right? So that Richard Sherman was arrested Wednesday morning after crashing his black Mercedes sedan and then trying to force entry into his in-laws' Redmond residence, according to Redmond police and Washington State Patrol. So he's currently a free agent.
That's not even the best part of it.
Yeah, so that's the main part of it. The details are all starting to come in. He didn't actually break. It's not technically a domestic issue because he broke into the in-laws, not his actual wife or kids. So that's part of it. League-wise, he's a free agent. So it's not like a specific team kind of has to handle this. It's the NFL on its own. Any sort of suspensions or anything move on the floor, that's all kind of predicated on him signing on to a team or whatever. Mm-hmm. And apparently during that time when state troopers and local Redmond police were called to the scene, he fought two cops. And had the canine unit called on him.
Jesus.
Now, you think, okay, yeah, he's a cornerback. He's a smaller guy. He's an NFL Pro Bowl defensive player who's still only 33 years old.
Yeah, he's a little over 6 feet.
He could beat up 99% of the population and probably every single member of the Redmond Police Department. No wonder they're like, we're going to let Fido take care of this.
Yeah, Ronnie Coleman's not on the Redmond, fucking police department. I tell you, it's fucking pussy and booze will make you do some crazy things, man. And it's, woo.
Yeah, so they obtained a warrant for blood draw. He's nothing charged yet because bail and stuff hasn't been done, at least as of the recording of this. But he's looking at potential DUI. He's looking at some kind of assault or resisting arrest.
Assault on an officer,
domestic violence, burglary-ish type of situation. And this is all at 6 a.m. this morning on Wednesday. So we didn't need another corner at all. But if there was any hope that the Raiders were thinking of picking Richard Sherman, or does it make it
pick him up now?
Or does it make the Raiders want him more now that he's got a rap sheet?
He'll be cheaper.
Yeah, right. That's that. I mean, someone's gonna get him. If this turns into a no jail time, his wife has already come out and said publicly, hey, he didn't hurt us, didn't hurt any of our kids. I just hope he's okay.
She was looking for that gravy, though. She wanted to get the next contract.
Yeah, she hopefully that's the truth, or maybe she just knows what's up and wants to get that contract going. But if it turns into something like that, where it's you're on parole, no jail time, community service, first offense type of thing, maybe he'll be suspended for a game or two. But you're right.
Yeah, I want to see him getting more than a couple games.
This is it all kind of depends on how the investigation goes.
Yeah.
But this could turn away a team, or this could make a team go.
Well, he'll be
less Richard expensive. Sherman for cheap.
Well, the thing is now is Sherman's got to just sign a 1-year deal, which he didn't want to do. He wanted to sign at least a 2-year or 3-year deal. So he's got to sign that 1-year deal because he's coming off of this shit. He's going to get lowballed. So he's got to, for his sake, keep his nose. Hopefully everything kind of gets ironed out The big thing I think is going to be the assault on the police officers. That's no joke, man. The police officers aren't going to freaking, not want to press charges. They're going to always want to do that. So if he keeps his nose clean this year, he signs onto a team for 1 year, keeps his nose clean, maybe he can sign a 2-year deal after the next season. But that's unfortunate, and it's unfortunate timing for him as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a win for whoever signs him, though, because like you said, get him cheap, still got some good years on him, still a leader. This is a little bit more of an this is like a little bit of an aberration for Sherman. Like, clearly it's not a good sign, but it's not, his third DUI or his fourth domestic issue.
It's not Alden Smith status.
Yeah, this is something that's first time showing, and at least for his career, hopefully it's a one-time showing.
Well, we can treat our DBs like Crazy Gideon used to. He's like, we'll stock them deep and we'll sign them cheap.
Yep.
Just get a bunch of them and see who pans out.
I'll take it. So a couple shows ago, we went into who we think would be the offensive MVPs next season. Like, who do we think are going to be the most valuable players at their positions? And, there was the main guys, right? Darren Waller, number one, and, Derek Carr, because he's the quarterback, is going to be high up there. Renfro was a little lower than some people wanted. John Brown, I put a little higher than even you or some people wanted, but I think blah, blah, blah. So I think we go the other way and say not offense or defense, but who are the biggest liabilities on our team going into next season? Because our roster is basically set. We're really not going to sign any splashy free agents. The money's not really there. We don't have any real major holes in any position right now. We have guys who need to deliver, but basically every single hole is either a first round pick or an expensive free agent that now it's time to sink or swim. And we've got backups at almost like solid backups in depth at almost every single position. So when you think, all right, who's their liabilities next season? Who are the guys on the Raiders roster that you're worried about could be the weak link that can hurt us next season? Who are the first guys you think of?
The first guys that come to my mind are Arnett, Abram, for sure on the defense. Yeah. I'm tired of hearing they're so much better or they're better. They're going to be this, they're going to be that. What they've shown us is they're not good professionals. That's what they've shown us. You have a 68% completion percentage against. Was it 68% or was it higher? 78%, something like that. Something ridiculous Arnett had. Like 3/4 of the time he threw it against him, the guy caught the ball. That's fucking ridiculous. And we all know Abrams' issues that, hopefully he gets his head straight and he's able to take on some coaching.
Quarterbacks had like 120 passer rating.
122
against
Abram
or something
stupid like that. Best in the league.
Real bad.
So, of course, those, because they haven't had a chance to redeem themselves on the field, those are my biggest liabilities going in. Offensively, if Leatherwood doesn't pan out, what's going to happen with that right tackle spot? Who's going to be the backup there? Who's the backup there now? Who's going to start? You can't have Sam Young there. That's a question mark for me, I think. But those, if you wanted to get three, my top three are probably going to be those three.
So good spots, good picks. And obviously, so it's kind of a two-parter for me, because when you think liability, you think, okay, we got to sink or swim with this guy. And so because Arnett's a first-round pick, Abrams a first-round pick, they're going to give themselves more opportunities to shoot themselves in the foot than other players, right? Yeah. The good thing we got going for us, though, is that we have so many corners and safeties that if Abram is just like as bad as last season or worse, Carl Joseph's in there, he's starting. Done. Like, you're out of there, Abram, you're gone. Damon Arnett, same thing. He's probably not starting anyway with Casey Hayward and Trayvon Mullen.
Nope.
If he gets his reps in and he's terrible, this is a chance for, Devin Lawson when he comes back, or Dan Lately or whoever, right? Like
Johnson.
Yeah, like there's Robertson. Like there's other guys who can kind of fill in those opportunities. We're not sinking or swimming with them. But you're right, like rough situations. Leatherwood, that's kind of a liability, right? Because who's our backup starting right tackle? Like Brandon Parker.
Oh God.
Right? That's no fun. I'm more optimistic for Leatherwood than viewing him as like a liability, kind of. If that makes sense. But the positions, and again, the position I'm worried about the most, and maybe liability is the wrong word, but it's Corey Littleton, because he's paid so much that he has to be beyond terrible to get pulled and not get playing time. And he's got no backup. None. Like, who's going to back him up?
Morrow can play the position, but then you're having to pull.
I mean, if they're in nickel, right, you pull Littleton and you have Gwadowski and Morrow there. But if you're in base 4-3,
yeah, it's going to be tough.
Like, he's like, that could be a major liability. Like, that can be rough. But I do like I didn't even think of really Leatherwood until you brought it up. Because get this, like, you know, the ESPN does their positional rankings every offseason, and they don't mean that, they don't mean that much, but I was kind of skimming through it. 6 of the top 7 on their list, we play. Number 1, Myles Garrett on the Browns. Number 2, TJ Watt, Steelers. Number 3, Joey Bosa, Chargers. So that's 2 games. 4, Khalil Mack, Bears. Although the last time we played him, we played pretty well, but still Khalil.
He's still Khalil fucking Mack.
Khalil freaking Mack. Number 5 is Chandler Jones in Arizona. We don't play. And then number 6, Von Miller, who we play twice. And then I was wrong. It's 7 of the top 8. It's 6 of the top 7. Up 5 of the top 6. Number 7, Chase Young, Washington football
he's good. God, that kid's good.
6 of the top 7 edge rushers in football we play. 2 of them are in our division. Our tackles, and they're going to go after Leatherwood, right? They're going to try to pick on Leatherwood. Yeah. Like, Colt Miller's like, he's the veteran now, the big contract now. He'll have his hands full of of course, but they're like, all right, Rook, see what you got. Settle up, partner. Here comes Chase Young. Here comes Von Miller. Hope you're ready.
And the thing is these guys get it done in different ways.
Yep.
It's like, Chase Young and Khalil Mack are probably the biggest 2 freaks as far as being quick off the ball and being extremely powerful. Not that the other guys aren't, but just to the level where they are. And Myles Garrett for that matter. But dude, it's Von Miller's a lot quicker than he is. He's not a really hulking big guy, but he's strong for his size. But he's really more of a speed guy. Bosa's very, very quick off the ball as well. He's got to be able to handle both. He's got to be able to handle all that.
It's both sides of the coin, right? Because if Alex Leatherwood could play really well this season against this opposition, like, this is an opportunity for him to say, like, pound his chest and say, "Bring it, MFers. I'm the man. Like, bring the best of the best." Or he just gets completely eviscerated by these dudes, and it kind of like it, and it gets people down on him, gets his confidence down, stuff like that.
We'll see how mentally strong he is, because if he gets his ass kicked by Myles Garrett or something, and he's got to come back next week against another guy, he's got to be able to bring it, because there's no time for a pity party here, because these guys come one week after the next.
All right, so those are our biggest liabilities. Really not as long as a list as I thought it would be. You know what I mean? We got some DBs that are kind of meh. Yeah. A rookie tackle that's got a big expectations and a lot of responsibility, and then a guy that we paid too much money at linebacker that just no real backups. But
I mean, it's one of those things is when we talked about a month or so or 2 ago is what are our biggest holes now in our team? It's like, well, we don't really know yet. Because our defense has been so mishandled for so long with Gunther. We don't know what we have and what we don't yet. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things where, I mean, what are our biggest? Only the glaring liabilities that we see with 2 guys, Abram and Arnett, with the play that we've seen, even though they do have backups, and with Littleton and Leatherwood, because they don't have backups. They don't have really good backups. I mean, it's interesting. 2 A's last names and 2 L last names.
I wonder if Mayock just has that twisted sense of humor about it. Oh, I'm just going to do it that way.
This way.
All right. Well, last week we had on one half of the Taped Outline podcast, BD Williams. He was phenomenal.
Awesome.
So we thought, all right, let's pit them against each other. Let's see how good the other co-host is. So we brought on Marcus Johnson to join us, and he joins us now. All right, join us now, a very busy guy in the Raider world. He's co-host of the Tape Don't Lie podcast, also host of the Little Pocket Awareness podcast. You can catch his work on silverandblackpride.com. Marcus Johnson joining us now. How you doing, Marcus?
Great, guys. Great. Appreciate you guys having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on. So this offseason hasn't been graded very well by outsiders looking into the Raiders. And we talk about this a lot of times. I feel like, because, you have these like national media writers and they're covering 32 teams and front offices and everything else NFL. And then there's, we're a little bit more focused in our attention, right? Just, basically all Raiders all the time.
Yeah.
I feel like when like a real like quick, if you only spend like 1/32 of your time on the Raiders, it could look how like the Raiders offseason didn't look that great, right? Like dumped a lot of great linemen, lost the number one receiver.
Yeah.
But I'm not all that unhappy with our offensive lineman situation with all the money we saved. Derek Carr turned Nelson Aguilar from nothing into a $22 million quarterback. I have no reason to believe he can't do that with John Brown, Henry Ruggs, like whoever. Just what did you make of this whole offseason and how it's been perceived around the league?
I think it's perceived around the league wrong because I think this what Rodney Hudson is. Like Rodney Hudson's, he's PFF, big center. They've been ranking him elite for a longest time, and he's got a lot of notoriety to him, right? And them trading him was kind of a little bit of a shock, right?
Yeah,
it was a shock to everybody. So that's the big thing.
To me.
With their offensive line, right? What are they doing? Like, why are they doing this? Why did they sign Kenyon Drake? Because everybody hates running backs. I think a lot of that has a lot to do with the image of the Raiders being like old school and Jon Gruden, like talk about '98 when he first came into the league. Like I think a lot of that has to do with that. I think the offensive line being switched around is for a couple of things. I mean, Josh Jacobs, he didn't have the year that Jon Gruden would like for his first round pick to have, right? And they had to get away from what Josh Jacobs did best, which is run outside zone. I mean, they didn't run outside zone at all as much last year. They went from 40% of their runs being outside zone for just Josh Jacobs to about 28% for Josh Jacobs last year and running outside zone. And they ran more gap, which Josh Jacobs, he's okay in, but he's not very great. He's not as good as an outside zone and him being able to execute. He's basically mostly an outside zone back. I mean, there's, with the NFL, there's guys who are gap backs. There's guys who run better in outside zone. And that's what Josh Jacobs is. And they had, Gabe Jackson, he never really was a fit for the outside zone system. He's more of a going forward guy, power guy, gap runs. So, in 2016 when they had Kalechi and Rodney and those guys, they just moved forward and were bowling people over and pulling and knocking people over. Outside zone and zone games, a little bit more finesse. You got to have little guys who can move a little bit more. You got to have like Richie Incognito in there. I think John Simpson is somebody that can come in there and do that. And that's why they drafted Alex Leatherwood, because that's what Leatherwood did. He's probably one of the best zone blockers that was in the draft. He probably might have been the best one. He has some pass blocking issues that he has to deal with, but running outside zone, he's awesome. He's going to come in day one and be able to knock some people over in the outside zone game. So there was a big focus there on getting Jacobs back to being Jacobs, I believe. That's the big focus that they had with the offensive line. And they might have sacrificed a little bit of pass blocking for it, but their goal is like, hey, we're going to make up for it with being a better run team, which is they want to do because they want to be balanced.
Yeah, also some continuity with the offensive line as well, right? Helps that zone scheme. You got to work together a lot. And having a lot of those older guys at a little bit higher price that are maybe get hurt a little bit more often. Maybe I went into that too, right?
Yeah, exactly. And especially, you have Trent Brown, he's not playing. There's no continuity at all. And then you have to forces Sam Young or somebody like to play who can't run that scheme at all. And then they have to go straight gap and inside zone. And it's just not as something they really want to do or something that Jacobs is good at. So, Kenyon Drake is a better gap runner, and maybe they'll be able to switch it up and be a little more still be versatile where they can run gap plays, but they still want to get Josh Jacobs going. That's their thing. They paid it. They drafted him in the first round. He had a big year in 2019. Everybody, thought he had a chance to be a top 5 back. He slipped back a little bit last year, and they want to get him going. That's their focus, I believe, for the whole offseason with the offensive line switches was to get him going and get him back to where he needs to be.
Yeah, my response to the Drake thing is you can't really look at him as a backup running back. He's more of like he's going to have his own packages, like you said. He's more of a gap guy. He's going to have his own packages, so you can't really look at him. He's more of like an offensive weapon type. Okay, well we're going to have specific things for him to do. He's not just going to spell Josh Jacobs.
Yeah. I mean, he's the replacement for Lynn Bowden. I mean, they thought whatever they thought they could do with Lynn Bowden, that's what they're going to do with Kenyon Drake. That's their goal. I think if Kenyon Drake became available, and going into the 2020 season, they probably never would have drafted Lynn Bowden. And never. I mean, we would be talking about how terrible of a draft pick that is, and that each had a third round pick because Jon Gruden has this love affair with Kenyon Drake ever since he's been calling games. So if he was able to hit free agency last year, it might have been different. But you're right. I mean, they're going to use Kenyon Drake in a plethora of ways. I think they're going to use him very, very well. They're going to have a plan for him, especially on third down. So I did like that signing a lot. I was very happy about it because I think he's going to help inside the 5 as well. I mean, he had 9 touchdowns inside the 5 last year and 21 carries. He's going to help a lot in different ways.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for making sure the run game gets its act back together, especially with our dog shit defense that we want to keep off the field as long as possible. But this whole idea that like they're completely altering the offense to fit Josh Jacobs, I just don't like. I mean, look, I love Jacobs, right? Like he's our number 1 back. He's great, wonderful, and this isn't some kind of like, the NFL doesn't need running backs in their word of zero. It's not one of those rants. It's just that like he just seems to be so dependent on the line, on the scheme, on so many other things. I mean, his longest touchdown run was 28 yards last season. It's like I don't see us re-signing him I hope we don't re-sign him to a huge contract when his rookie deal is up, to be honest. And again, not a hate Josh Jacobs thing. It's just like for all that the Raiders have done for him, it's like he's so dependent on what the Raiders do for him. They're kind of dragging any deficiencies the Raiders have, like dragging us out of it. It's the other way around with Jacobs.
Yeah, I think in 2019, though, I think he kind of elevated past the line. Next Gen Stats has this cool stat called your rushing yards over expectation. He was 4th in the league. So whatever he was expected to get, he exceeded it. But last year he did it. And I think that has a lot to do with him being injured. I think he got injured in that Saints game. He was never the same. He didn't have the burst anymore that he had. He didn't have any breakaway runs. You remember from 2019, he had like the big run against the Packers. He went for 60 yards. Mm-hmm. He had the big run against the Chiefs early in the season. He had a bunch of big runs against the Chiefs in the second time they played him. Those weren't there last year. I mean, he had no breakaway speed, and I think that had a lot to do with injuries too. And he just wasn't able to create like he was able to in the year before. So maybe if he's healthy, but I mean, that's a different question. Can he stay healthy all year? Because he got hurt in 2019 too. So I mean, that's kind of what happens when you take first round running backs. You're taking that chance. Is that guy going to stay healthy the whole time? I mean, he never had that many carries, and he never carried the load in Alabama. He wasn't like somebody who was coming there and like Derrick Henry comes in who ran the ball 450 times at Alabama, and then he able to come into the league and carry it. I mean, he barely ran the ball at Alabama.
Yeah, I'm just worried that Jon Gruden's going to do everything he can for Jacobs because he's literally his only first-round pick that's panned out. So he's like, I got to make sure he works. I got to make sure he's panning out. Otherwise, I'm like 0 for 6. Like, I got to make Josh Jacobs work no matter what else I got to do.
Yeah, you got a point. And I believe that's kind of a little bit of it too. But yeah, that's his boy. He wants to make sure that Jacobs succeeds because he wants to run the football. And they run the football a lot, man. They're 5th in the NFL. They're tied 5th for like most runs. Highest run percentage in the NFL. So they run the football. I mean, that's what they're going to do to a stubborn point. I mean, I hate how much they run on first down. It annoys the hell out of me, and it's stubborn. But I mean, if that's what they're going to do, they better do it damn well, I guess. So
yeah, it's like we were talking to RJ and I were talking about this a few episodes back about why their play action doesn't work. It's like, well, if you know they're going to run, they're not going to like it. Their formations and you know what they're going to do. It's like he's very predictable. And to his credit, his offense still works. But yeah, it's very predictable. And me too on first downs. I mean, and going back to that burst not being there, if you look at the Carolina game last year, Jacobs was dragging guys. He was making guys miss. He was always falling forward. He was doing that like Marcus Allen, where he would always get those extra 2-3 yards after contact, always falling forward, getting that extra. He was doing that. And he looked really quick and shifty with Carolina, but we didn't really see that after a couple of weeks. And if that 28-yard run, which should have would have been 29 yards, he would have got caught at the 1. He was that DB was running back. He was catching them. So yeah. It's one of those things where is Drake going to help him be better?
See, I don't know if Drake's going to help him be better. And it's interesting how they're going to use Jake, because we're talking about running the football, right? And they're talking about passing the ball to Jacob. So it's always a contradiction with me with Jon Gruden. It's like, what is your plan? Or because if you want to pass the ball, then you got to pass. I mean, you can't. Today's NFL is hard to be balanced, right? You don't see a lot of teams that are balanced, like how Jon Gruden visions them balancing. I mean, the Bills, the Chiefs, they're pass-heavy teams, the Cowboys and stuff like that. They're going to pass the football. And then you got the Browns and the Ravens and teams like that. They are going to run the football. There's really not a teams that are like extremely balanced where they do both, right? And I that's kind of his struggle, is that he wants to be that. He wants to be able to where I'm going to throw the ball 50% of the time and we're going to run the ball 50% of the time. But I really feel like you got to pick one and you got to go with it and you got to make that your identity. And, I mean, if you have all these wide receivers too, I mean, it might make sense to spread it out and throw the ball. I don't know. And especially when you got Kenyon Drake back there and you want to use him, and then Josh Jacobs can catch the football too. So it's interesting how they want to do what exactly they want to be, but I don't know if I 100% agree with them trying to be balanced, because I don't know if that works in today's NFL, but we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like, I guess it works if you've got the weapons and the scheme to do it,
Yeah.
But it's like anything else. Like, do you want your offensive line to be great pass protectors? Do you want them to be, like you mentioned, zone guys or power guys? Like, it's hard to get linemen that can do all three perfectly, right? Like you're going to be spending $10 million a year on each guy if you're saying, all right, I want you to be a 9 out of 10 in every single element of it. And that seems like that's kind of what he's trying to do. Like, he has to have a speedy guy in Ruggs. He has to have huge tackles to do power runs. He needs a quarterback who's like super disciplined, but can throw the deep ball when he wants him to. God knows what he wants from the defense. But my thing I'm wondering is, like, I don't think Jon Gruden is outdated. I think a lot of people, like, as far as like schematically or scheme-wise, he does so much homework and stuff, and his offense clearly works. I just think he's outdated in that he's old school with how he treats an organization and players. Like, he still thinks it's like the 90s where it's like you tell guys what to do and they're just going to do it or they're cut. Like, it's just like, you get a bunch of like millennials in there, man. Like, it's a little different. Like, we heard how, Amari Cooper and Gruden just kind of like didn't really get along. It didn't work out. Amari goes to Dallas, and they're like, they started a chess club for him because they found out he liked chess. Like, it sounds like lame, but like, those are little things that can make a guy like feel 8% better about going to work every day when you're paying him what you're paying Amari Cooper, like these little investments that kind of pay off. Can you imagine Jon Gruden starting like a clay modeling class for like his DBs? Like, no way. It'll never happen.
Never. You make a great point about Cooper, because every time I see Cooper on Instagram, he's doing Neiman Marcus ads right now. Yeah. Like, Gruden would not. He's like, what are you doing? Where's the film? Where's the film? So it makes sense why he didn't work out with Cooper, because Cooper just wasn't a grinder. He wasn't somebody that loves football. And that's probably why, like, they draft Arnett, and then they don't feel that great about Arnett at this point, because he's not the tape grinder type of dude,
Yeah.
And that's why he loves Waller and he loves Carr and all those guys, because those guys are just, all football. They're, they practice, they work out after practice. They do all these things. And that's why those guys are in he's a good place with him and not in his doghouse, But I mean, you could get in Gruden's doghouse in like a day. So
one thing.
One thing, you're over there. So who knows? You never know what's up with Gruden. Because I think Ruggs got in his doghouse a little bit last year, and Ruggs is trying to dig his way out of that doghouse himself. And that's why you talk about he's working out after practice and stuff. Because if Ruggs wants the ball, he's got to get out of Gruden's doghouse. So.
One thing, RJ, I actually do think his offense is a little bit antiquated for the NFL right now. Yeah. I think that it works and he gets yards and it scores points because he's just smart and he knows how to scheme. But if you take a look at the teams that were in the conference championships last year, Tampa Bay ranked 3rd in offense, KC ranked 6th, Green Bay ranked 1, and Buffalo ranked 2. Those are the 4 teams, and they're all passing teams. These are all teams that push the ball down the field. This is my critique of the offense. Gruden and Carr, they don't push the ball downfield enough. And these are all teams and quarterbacks. When you blitz them, they make you pay deep. And that's an issue that I have with the entire offense and with Carr as a quarterback. And I brought it up to BD last week, and he said, well, there's side adjustments and this and that. Well, pressure doesn't necessarily mean getting blitzed all the time. It's, when you see pressure in the pocket. And I feel personally that Carr checks down the ball a little bit too much when there's plays further down the field to be made. What do you think about that?
I think Carr last year, I think with Carr, you have to look at 2020 as a season alone. I think if you put his pass into it, like if you add 2019 and all those things, I think a lot of the criticisms are fair, right? I he's pre-snap guy, wasn't very good post-snap. He checks down a lot. He's a heavy check down guy, especially when Gruden first got there. I think Gruden was, tried to rise his completion percentage a little too much and tried to imply to somebody who was already conservative, right? He's already conservative before Gruden got there, and then Gruden tried to imply to him to be even more conservative because he thought he can get more completions out of him. So at that point, we saw a quarterback that, the first 2 years, it felt like Carr was a little bit of a robot. He was feel like he was trying to impress Gruden and to try to keep his job, right? That's why I kind of felt like it. He would everything he did. That's why he's throwing the ball away on 4th down. Like everything he did is like, what would Gruden do if I got into a situation? What would Gruden want me to do, right? Yeah. And it kind of really hurt him. I think in 2020, I think we saw a little bit of a different quarterback. I think that he did throw deep a lot more, especially second half of the season. His average depth of target was like 9.2, and even on film, I think he put some of his best film out there in 2020, and I think that he kind of took the next step to kind of get out of that straight check downs, and he's going to check down. I'm not gonna say that he's not. He's going to check down more often than most people will. But what you need is him to still be aggressive when they need him to be aggressive. And, throw into tight windows when they need him to throw into tight windows. And I think he started to do that at the end of the year. I think he started to take a little bit of a next step. And it might have been because the defense was so bad that he felt like that he had to start pressing and he couldn't just play on schedule anymore. And he had to take more deep shots. I think if he plays how he did the last 8 weeks by being aggressive and throwing downfield and him and like he was to Aguilar and he was throwing into tight windows, if he keeps with that aggressiveness, I think the Raiders would be fine in that way. I will say to the blitzes, though, I think, I don't think teams blitz Carr very much. Teams don't blitz Carr because I think Carr is so good pre-snap that he's really, really good against the blitz, right? And I know you're talking about throwing deep, and he last year he did throw deep against the blitz, and teams just stopped blitzing him. So, what he did better last year, though, is that when teams stopped blitzing him in 2019, he didn't have the capacity to post snap to like read things. So like there was like what the Chiefs would do, they would switch it up and then he's throwing picks and he's throwing pick sixes. And
yeah.
Everybody's mad. He's looking ugly against the Titans. He's looking ugly against the Jags and stuff like that because they're switching it up on him, trying to stop him. And I think that when that happened a little bit more this year, he was able to switch it up and he was able to anticipate better more and play better post snap, which is a big step for me. I was on TDL like, being excited that he was actually doing that stuff because he wasn't doing it before. So I think if he continues from 2020 on, I think Carr will be fine. But you're right. They are conservative. They're both conservative guys. Gruden wants Carr to play on schedule. He likes to check down. He's not going to be mad at it. There's always a play. In the 2019 Broncos game, the last game of the year, when they're down like 10 points and they end up getting a field goal or something, and Jon Gruden daps him, says great drive afterwards. I'm like, bro, like they didn't score a touchdown. It's not a great drive. So it is a little bit of both. When you have that coach mindset, that coach is telling you that it's okay to check down and it's okay to do, and it's all right, then you have that mindset too. So, it's a little bit of a coaching, and then, you got a quarterback that's always already a little bit of a conservativeness to him too. It's going to happen, but as long as they continue what they did in the second half of the season, which is throw deep, I think we'll see a little bit better.
Yeah,
Marcus, you can't see this because he's wearing headphones, but there's steam shooting out of his ears because he hates Derek Carr. At any time you start going through like all these good things, he has all these ways he wants to like dump all over DC. You're like, well, actually, he's pretty good.
I don't know if I was dumping on him. I don't know if I was dumping on him. The things that he was doing better.
You
dropped
Trout, squatted over DC's poster like you do every single show, and Marcus is like, no, that's just not true.
You see what I'm dealing with?
That's not true.
What I'm saying, what happened actually was the things that I want him to do more. Marcus agrees and said at the second half of last year, and hopefully beyond, he continues. So he agrees with my assessment. That's what's going on here.
He says
you just don't want to hear that.
Things you say he doesn't do.
Dude, you know what? Try telling Josh Allen to check down. He'd be like, "Fuck you," and he fucking just throw it deep anyway.
And what would Gruden do? Bench his ass.
Hell no, he would not bench Josh Allen.
If you piss off Gruden, you'll doghouse him so fast. Yeah. He'll have a chain around his neck. He'll be eating out of a dog bowl in the backyard.
Get the fuck out of here.
To be fair, I think check downs. Card before. He did them a lot, right? So, but check downs aren't a bad thing as a quarterback. As you brought up Josh Allen, I think that's one thing that he needs to do more. If he did check down more, he'd probably be even more efficient. And he'd be even more unstoppable, right? And I think, but you just can't do it too much. And Carr's problem is that, and like I said, the second half of the season, he didn't do it as much. But his problem is that sometimes he just reads the field too fast. So like you see a coverage happen and the coverage drops back. Sometimes you can wait, and then sometimes you got to anticipate a window. Kurt Warner talked about this a little bit. So sometimes you got to anticipate that window opening a little bit longer, right? Instead of just seeing where the coverage is when you're drop back and it's this, I got to go here, right? And sometimes it's too quick for him. But last year we did see him hold the ball a little bit longer and get to where he needs to be, right? And that's what you just want to see him get better there, all right? And that's what you want to see, and we saw that last year. So hopefully in 2021, it's all year. Because, at the beginning of the year, they basically were the same as they were in 2019. They're kind of short passing offense. Waller had like 8.9 yards per reception, but he ended up finishing the year with like 11.1 because they started throwing downfield at the end of the year. So that just has to keep happening. They just have to keep doing that. If they keep doing that, I think the offense can be very explosive. If they
his trajectory, like you mentioned, is going in the right direction, right? Like his biggest critiques, and even me, like my biggest critique, the fumbles need to stop. Like that hasn't been good. Like that's clearly, we can all agree, like that's huge in this, small hands like me. Like I feel you, Derek Carr. Like it sucks, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. But two, like he's moving in the pocket a little bit better. Like he is throwing it like deeper when he needs to. So it's like I'm seeing progression in all the things, like not all the things, but most of the things that we've had issues with. And also I think people forget, like he had back-to-back seasons where his number one receiver didn't play at all. Like Antonio Brown 3 seasons, the Hard Knocks year, Williams the year before that, like his first round wide receiver Henry Ruggs didn't pan out at all what you expected him to be. Of course he's got Waller, which is godsend, but hopefully I think like continuity at wide receiver too is going to be like the other part of this. I think that's going to help DC specifically and the offense in general.
Yeah, they need a wide receiver that can get open, and Aguilar was that for last year. But Aguilar, he just dropped the football too much. So when he got the key point, like the Chiefs game, right?
Second half of the year, he just started dropping the ball crazy.
Right. But it was more because they were targeting him, bro. They started throwing.
Philly fans are like, that's the Aguilar I know.
And then they started throwing to him a lot. He started dropping the football, and he was able to get open, and that's what Carr liked. But he just wasn't dependable enough. So they need somebody that can get open, that he can depend on, that has timing. You hope that's Ruggs. You hope Ruggs had a crazy offseason where he was able to get better at his routes. They're talking about it that he did. You hope Ryan Edwards can get a little better at his routes too.
I'm a huge Edwards fan, man. I'm hoping he can put. Have you seen some of his college tape? He was basically like a Waller outside wall. Like he just throw the ball up and he just jumps up and gets it.
Yeah.
That's just who he was.
He still has that ability too. He has to get better at beating press coverage. He just struggled with that a little bit last year. So he has to get better at just adjusting to what NFL press is. Like it's not what you face in college. Sometimes guys are like, they used to be, because he used to be pressed pretty good in college. But it's, when you're facing, you're facing Stephon Gilmore. It's not the same press coverage that he faced against LSU, even though that guy did go to the league, because he has to adjust his press. The corner has to adjust his press coverage to what's happening in the NFL. So, it's not the same. He has just to get better at that. And I think those guys have the work ethic for it. And, they just have to be dependable guys that can get open, you know, and that's what Carr needs. Carr needs somebody that can get open on the outside, especially in the red zone too. That's what they need in the red zone. They need somebody that can win. They need somebody that when it's one-on-one, I'm gonna win, and then gives Carr the easy open lane to throw it to in the red zone, so that it can help them out a little bit.
Well, we know Edwards can block. That's the one thing he was doing a lot of last year.
He does really damn well too.
Yeah, he does a really good job.
So when you look at our roster going in next season, who is the biggest liability in your eyes? Like, where's the one position or one player in a position you're like, okay, this is the 1 weak link. Like, this is the guy that really has to turn this around for this team to have some success.
It has to be center, man. It has to be center to me. I'm terrified of Andre James. I know a lot of people are Andre James fans. I know some people are really big pushers, but I'm terrified. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I've talked about this.
Which part specifically?
What's that?
Which part specifically? Pass blocking, run blocking.
I think
the snaps. He bumbled a lot of long snaps.
He fumbled a lot of long snaps. He did in that game in the Alliance. He didn't play very well, and he got dominated. He got dominated in pass pro a lot, right? It just. And I posted on Twitter, and people got mad at me. They're like, "It was only one game," and I was like, "Well, it was the only game.
That's the only game we found.
Yeah.
It's the only game we have."
So if he played bad for 4 games, like you'll acknowledge it, like.
I guess, you know. So, but
and he's also got the impossible job of filling Rodney Hudson's shoes.
I
like
know,
a dude that was like beloved, team leader, played so well for so long. Like he can't.
Yeah.
He has like opposite of the Gus Bradley issue. Like he's filling in for Gunther. It's like there's already a red carpet for him because he's not Gunther. He's got the opposite problem. You gotta be Rodney Hudson now, just less experienced and cheaper, but play the same way. You're like, ugh.
Yeah, yes. I'm a little terrified there. I don't know what's going to happen. Because I know they're going to throw him out there. I think Nick Martin's there. Nick Martin might even play better than him in the preseason, but I don't think they're going to care. I think they think that Andre James is going to start. I mean, I'm a little worried about him, you know, making checks and stuff. I would feel real more comfortable with the offensive line or the offense as a whole if Nick Martin was starting. I'm not going to lie, but hopefully Andre James shuts me up and he has a great year. But I'm a little nervous. I'm a little nervous about him because even in the run game, he didn't show the play strength that you need from a center. You know, like you need that play strength. He's going against big boys. I mean, the beginning of the year. I mean, he's got Calais Campbell and those guys coming up. Campbell lined up in front of him. You know, you rather have Nick Martin out there. You know, so it's going to be interesting because in the next week you got Stephon Tuitt is coming. Them boys is coming, you know. It's not gonna get easy for him. So we're gonna find out real quick how good he is, but they are gonna throw him out there, and I'm a little nervous. I'm not gonna lie. That's probably the only nervous thing about the offense because if he doesn't have it could wreck the first 2 games, you know, and or it could be a great thing, and they maybe find a way around him even if he does play bad. But so we'll see.
Well, we're gonna find out if Andre James has thick skin because Calais Campbell, he'll say something to you. He'll beat you and he'll talk to you. He'll say a couple things. So we'll see how thick his skin is.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But this is the first time in a long time though this season, like when we discuss like who are the liabilities and stuff, this one's a little different for me because we finally have depth at almost every position, right? Like you mentioned, like Nick Martin, right? Like we got a starting caliber backup center. Like when is that? Like how often does that happen? Right? Like all these, like, will Henry Ruggs be able to develop? If not, John Brown will take his spot, right? Is Brian Edwards going to develop? If not, Zay Jones will be there. Hunter Renfrow gets hurt. Willie Snead will play in the slot. Like there's, you know, defense. Like we've got like 4 starting-ish caliber safeties, right? Like, and the guys don't work out. We got next guy up, veteran, whatever. In basically every position except linebacker. Linebacker, like we're stuck with Littleton because of his contract. We're stuck with Witkowski because of his contract. I guess like that should be our strength of what they're getting paid, but it's the one position, like defensive tackle. We've got like 8 defensive tackles. Like linebacker, the one position where if Littleton just sucks, they're just gonna keep a sucky guy out there. Like there's no one worth pulling Littleton for on the roster.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Corey Littleton played well once Rod Marinelli came in. Yeah, he did play well. So you hope. I mean, he's played well his whole career. I mean, I don't know. You just hope last year was just Paul Gunther just sucking. I mean, that's what you have to hope with Corey Littleton.
You have to only hope that because the defense isn't that different, right? Like, it's
it's
full of all first-round draft picks and expensive free agents. Like, you're not gonna. You have to hope it's the coaching.
Yeah, yeah, and you hope that Paul Gunther was a lot of the issue, and with Corey Littleton playing better with Rod Marinelli in there, you hope that kind of translates. You hope Gus Bradley. I mean, Gus Bradley is just a better coordinator altogether. Let's just keep it real. I mean, he's had good defense everywhere he's gone. I mean, the year before the Jaguars had their awesome defense, they were already going towards his last year before he got fired. They were already playing pretty well. Just Blake Bortles was terrible, and then they just transcended once they got Calais Campbell over there after he left. But they still were running the same system. They're still running his system, right? Then he went to the Chargers, and they were good, right? They had a good defense for a while. So he has.
Everyone got hurt. Everyone got
last year. Everyone was hurt.
So it's like it's like, oh, he got fired. It's like, yeah, he was playing with the skeleton crew. I mean,
Bosa got hurt. Ingram got hurt.
Like the super.
Derwin James got hurt. I was like, dude, your best 3 defenders got hurt. What do you want to do?
And they're still like 18th, So like it's
I'd kill for 18th. Are you kidding me?
18th? Oh man, I'd be doing backflips in the hall. 2016, we had the 20th ranked defense. Go 12-4, right? Like 18th.
I'd kill for 18th, man.
I'll take the Chargers leftovers any day. Shit, man. I hate to say
because 18th, you're getting some good. You have some couple good performances sprinkled in there. A couple of them, right? This is the Raiders need. They need a couple of good, some good defensive performances. And I think Bradley's gonna have more, especially he's really good against Patrick Mahomes. I mean, that's where he excels. Patrick Mahomes has never played really well against him. So I think that's kind of, where he's going to, shine a little bit is in kind of elevating some of these players to making them actually maybe seem better than they actually are, which is our hope, right? Mm-hmm. The other liability I call out when you talk about liability is probably slot corner. I mean, it's probably our other biggest liability because we have no idea who's going to be there. I mean, it's probably going to be Nevin Lawson, and I don't know how you guys feel about Nevin Lawson, but
not the first 4 games. He ain't gonna be here the first 4 games. Amik Robertson or Nathan Hobbs or somebody, but he ain't gonna be here in the first 4 games. He better hope that one of those 2 guys fall on their face because he ain't gonna have a job after the 4th game when he comes back anyway.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So that's probably the liability on defense. We don't know who's gonna be a slot corner, and we're hoping that it's Amik because they drafted him. Maybe it's Nate Hobbs, but we'll see. So
when you think about Abram, that's one of my big ones too. Is they're going to give him a shot to get out there, and I don't know that if he's going to be able to mentally calm down enough and put that ego aside. What do you think?
I think what Gus Bradley has to do, he has to look at how the Seahawks used Jamal Adams last year. I mean, I think Jamal Adams, Jamal Adams is not a good cover guy. I mean, he's not the best cover guy in the world, but he brings a presence. Right, and he brings an attitude to the defense. And when he did play with the Seahawks, when he wasn't hurt, even though he was a liability in coverage, they played better because a lot of the liability he had, not the liability, I mean a lot of the the what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of the aggressiveness and the mentality that he has, right? And they basically just used him as a blitzer, right? And everyone blitzer. He's a very good blitzer, right? And I know Bradley doesn't blitz that much, but either does Ken Norton, who comes from that tree, right? They don't blitz that much, but when they did, they sent Jamal Adams off the edge, and I think they got to use Abram more that way. Avoid trying to get him in cover situations. I mean,
especially out in space, man. Keep him close to the line.
Yeah, exactly. And allow him to play the run a little bit, be physical, and get after the passer on some blitzes, and maybe he could load up on some sacks and use him that way. But right now he's a little stiffer in coverage. I think he's a little better playing deep too. I think he reads the field a little bit better, sometimes playing deep. You just got to avoid him being a lot of one-on-ones. You don't want him in a situation where he's guarding Stephon Diggs or something like that. You don't want anything like that because then that's a huge play is coming.
Or Travis Kelce in the end zone, just leaving him there.
Or you're that. Or another thing, he has to stop freelancing too, which is his big issue. Is that that play, he was supposed to stay deep on there, and he decided, I'm gonna go knock Patrick Mahomes' head off.
Who's 30 yards away from me, so I'm gonna bail on quarters coverage and try to get it.
Just get thrown over the head. And even the Jerry Jeudy play, the 92-yard one. He's supposed to stay in the middle there in Tampa. They're doing kind of a different Tampa 2 look, and he's supposed to stay in the middle, and he decides to come up for some reason. I don't know. Nobody knows why he decided to come up. And guess what they did? He Drew Lock. Okay, any quarterback in the NFL, you come up, look at that, I got a dig. You threw it to him, it's 92 yards. So he's got to stop freelancing. It's his big, a lot of what he's got to do. He's got to trust the scheme. He's got to play within the scheme. He's got to trust the players around him. It felt like that he thought that the Raiders defense sucked, so he was going to make every single play. and he's going to make up for it. And he has to stop trying to play hero ball too.
You're not Bo Jackson Tecmo Bowl. Like, you're not going to win the whole game by yourself.
Run backwards 30 yards, run the other 80 the other way. It'll be fine. What's a reasonable expectation for the Raiders defense next season? Like we talked about, it's like, I think the stats, like the Raiders have had a top 10 defense twice in the last 30 years, right? Like if we were like, and when we were top 20 in 2016, we were 12-4, right? So it's like, this is a systemic, decades-long issue. This isn't like just a Gunther or like a Jonathan Abram problem. This has been a major issue for the Raiders for like multiple cycles of coaches and players. So it's like, with that backdrop, like what is a reasonable expectation for Gus Bradley in the defense next season?
I think my expectation is just to be top 20 in points allowed. I think that's got to be their goal. I think they got to stop the other team from scoring points, and maybe even if they give up yards, I think they got to find a way to give up field goals. You know, the Raiders defense is actually halfway decent in the red zone last year. It's got it crazy. If you look up the stats, they're actually halfway decent in the red zone. So they're in tight quarters. They played a little bit better because they got a lot of man-to-man guys. So, you know, Isaiah Johnson's good in man-to-man, and so is Trayvon Mullen and Arnett. That's where he was good at in college, but, you know, he has a lot of other issues besides that. But, I mean, if they could just stop people from scoring a little bit, I mean, I think that's kind of what their goal is, no matter how many yards they give up, as long as they can get under 20 points per game, not under 20 points per game, but like top 20 in points allowed. I think that should be an expectation for them, and I really think they can do that with Gus Bradley.
Last one for me. I remember the schedule two seasons ago where they traveled to like London and like all these, like it was like the craziest schedule ever and terrible season. It fell apart late. Last season the schedule started tough. Raiders go 6-3, gets easy on the back end, end up going 8-8, right?
Yeah.
Where do you see this? How do you judge the Raiders schedule this season? Starts out kind of tough, ends kind of tough, semi-soft in the middle. Not as like a lot of travel by a general standard, but not as much travel as like a West Coast team that always, you know, they always have so much travel every single season. Like, is this a manageable schedule, or is that already like the biggest hump we got to overcome?
I think it's a very manageable schedule. I think it's the easiest schedule they've had in a long time. Playing the NFC East is
dream. Chef's kiss.
I think even if you look at some of the defenses over there, right? I mean, Giants.
The Washington football team's got a couple guys out there.
Yeah. You know, the Washington football team's got good defenses, but their quarterbacks, man. I mean, we're going to get.
Hell, man, Fitzy gave us the problems against the Dolphins last year. It wasn't Tua, it was Fitzy.
I was
Fitzy's the one that put up the points.
We gave him a nice neck adjustment though for his troubles, at least.
True.
At least something.
Yeah, right. And you got Daniel Jones, you got Jalen Hurts, so you're going to be playing against some of those guys. I mean, they're on the weaker side of the quarterbacks, right? I mean, the quarterback is really good, but you know the Cowboys can't stop anybody. So I think playing the NFC East is going to help them a lot. If they can go like 3-1 in the NFC East, they'll be gold, right? And then you know you got the AFC West, which the AFC West is, you know, I think the Chargers get a lot of hype. I mean, because how Justin Herbert played, but they have a weak secondary. They got weak linebackers. They're not very good inside on defense. I mean, their offense has no running back. They ain't got no running back. If you guys go look at their depth chart, I don't know who's going to run. I mean, Joshua Kelly, I guess. Yeah. They don't have a running back. I mean, all they have is a line, Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. That's it, right? So the Chargers, I think they're going to disappoint people, even if Herbert does play better than last year. They're going to disappoint people a little bit. And then the Broncos, they got Drew Lock. So I think those, and then there was that.
We got Teddy B too.
Yeah. I mean,
you got the R&B singer Teddy B.
Soto's been tooting the Teddy B horn for a while. He makes a good point. Like when Teddy B's on a good team, he doesn't lose the game for you, right? He's on it.
Yeah, but, if the Raiders can, I think the Carr is very good against Vic Fangio his whole career, like against when he was on the Bears, his best game as a rookie was against the Vic Fangio Niners, right? He's been good against Vic Fangio his whole career. So is Jon Gruden. I think they'll be fine against the Broncos. So I think from a schedule standpoint, as long as they don't lay eggs, right? Yeah. They have to. There's going to be some games where I don't know. They just gotta avoid the eggs.
Avoid those Jets and Falcons games.
The 0-1 team is probably one of my favorite Raiders team. And they started off 10-3, and then they had the debacle at the end of the year. They lost like their last 3 games, and then they lost home field and then ended up losing the tuck rule. And then you go to Bucks, right? And then the Raiders, the Bucks in 2008, they start off 9-3. They lose their last 4 games. They lose the playoffs. They don't get to the playoffs, and then Jon Gruden ends up getting fired. And then we're seeing that same thing happen now. 2019, they start off 6-4. They finish 7-9. Last year, they start off 6-3. They finish 8-8. So they have to finish. I mean, we could see them. I would feel more comfortable if they started off like 9-2. Then I'd be like, okay, maybe we struggle a little bit at the end here. We'll be all right. It was, but
I'll allow you to take your foot off the pedal a little bit now since you're 9-2.
Like we're okay, right? Maybe we'll finish. But yeah, that's the big thing. Like it don't matter. I mean, they probably are going to start our pot because I think Gruden is such a grinder in the offseason. He's going to grind, right? He's going to come up with some new plays. He's like, I'm gonna run this same concept, but I'm gonna add this, and you're not gonna be ready for it. And then he's gonna just come out blazing like he does every year, and cars that have all these great numbers and all that stuff. But then it gets to the end of the year, and he gets a little stubborn. He gets back to his old concepts that he thinks are gonna work, and sometimes they just don't work. And then the Raiders start losing, and they become predictable, and they run the ball every first down, and teams are like, okay, you run the ball every first down, we're gonna sack the box on first down, and he won't run play action. It's like that's all that matters to me at this point. Like, are we gonna finish? Like, I really don't care how we start.
I think
the last 6 games of the year we went 3 and out. We started the game 3 and out. If that doesn't tell you how predictable they were at the end of the year, it's like it's very Andy Reid-esque, where before he got Mahomes, he would start off hot, like 11-3, 12-2, something like that, and then like lose a couple games and be like out in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah,
and you got Mahomes now, and Mahomes is like the anti-Andy, like the Andy Reid kryptonite. Like, okay, even if you're still being predictable, I can still make something happen down the field.
Yeah, and a lot of it is because, like I talk about, he throws all his new plays out at the beginning of the year instead of saving some. You just can't. You'd rather you use some of the old concepts early because you're playing teams that aren't very familiar with you. There's not a lot of tape, right? So you could use a lot of things that you're using earlier. But he likes to throw all these type of wrinkles out there. Like there's a play they run called arches, which is a slant that they like to run. And at the first game of the year with Nelson Aguilar, they added a deep route to it. They ended up throwing a touchdown to Aguilar on it, right? And that was a wrinkle that he added. But then you get to the end of the year, I mean, you can't use that anymore, right? Because then you already threw that out there. But if they kept running arches like they normally do, and then we get to week 10 and week 11, and you throw in that deep route, it's a little different, Then that's really catching teams off guard. But you're not going to catch the Panthers off guard. They don't know your playbook, So it's you're right. It is an Andy Reid thing where he did this. I'm cooking. I'm in the off season. I'm cooking.
He's definitely cooking. He's big.
He's cooking and eating. Andrew's cooking and eating.
Yeah. He's cooking hamburgers too.
Well, sometimes it only takes like a spark. Like you remember, like you brought like 0-1 where they fell apart in the latest season. Remember 0-2, the Super Bowl year, they started 4-0, go 0-4 after that, so they're 4-4, right? And then on Monday Night Football, I forgot Rams or somebody. Same thing. They're losing. And it's like, fuck, we're gonna have a losing record. Rod Woodson gets that pick in the back of the end zone, runs it 108 yards, and they go on another run again, right? So it's like I feel like it's one of those things where if the Raiders just had something that can do like a giant spark, like it doesn't even have to be on defense, but just like something to spark a veteran player to like do something like that. I feel like that could turn mid-season problems around so fast, and they just don't like. They have leaders like Rodney Hudson was like a quiet leader by example. Derek Carr, leader by example. Everyone loves him, but like. A spark of some kind, like some kind of like Jonathan Abrams should have been that guy, but he sucks. Like if he was good, like he would be that guy. I feel like a player like that or a moment like that can turn something around so fast. We just don't have that guy. It seems
something like the anti-Falcons game, like the exact opposite of what happened in the Falcons game.
Yeah.
We'll see. It's going to be an interesting season, that's for sure. Make sure you check out the one of the hardest working guys in Raider Nation, Little Pocket Awareness Podcast, Tape Don't Lie Podcast, silverandblackpride.com as well. You can check them out over there. We had BD on last week. We're like, we got to double up. We can get both guys on here. I'm glad we did, Marcus. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks,
No
Marcus.
problem, man. I really appreciate you guys. You guys are fun. This is very fun. I know it's hard to be entertaining doing a podcast, but you guys do it. So it's a good job.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Alcohol. That's the key. Marcus Johnson.
Right.
Check him out on Twitter at the Mark John NFL. Thanks for coming on, bud.
All right. See you.
Thank you so much, Marcus. That was awesome. I really
dude.
wonder who did better, BD or last week or Marcus this week?
I don't know, man. That's a tough call.
Like it's like picking which kid you love the most. They're both awesome.
That's
Awesome
easier, I think, because one kid's always going to be a little bit more of a shit.
Yeah, definitely. I was always the good one. I was the one I always looked up to. Clearly, this is what they told me. So you brought this up, and it's an older video of Nick Saban doing one of those coaching kind of like Zoom coaching seminars that he does, and it made you think about Jon Gruden. So this is from March, so it's not recent, but it kind of goes into a lot of the themes we've been talking about. So here's Jon Gruden from what, 4 months ago?
Nick Saban.
Oh, sorry, Nick Saban from 4 months ago.
We have good defense. I mean, we gave up 19 points a game last year, and that was first in the SEC. 19 points a game. That's 6 points above what we think is average, which is giving up 13 points a game. And it's first in the SEC. So the game is different now. People score fast. The whole idea, like I grew up with the idea that you play good defense, you run the ball, you control vertical field position on special teams, and you're going to win. Whoever rushes the ball the most for the most yards is going to win the game. You're not going to win anything now doing that. Because the way the spread is, the way the rules are to run RPOs, the way the rules are that you can block downfield and throw the ball behind the line of scrimmage. I mean, those rules have changed college football. All right, and no huddle fastball has changed college football. So I changed my philosophy about 5 or 6 years ago. All right, and it was more than that. When Lane came here, we said we got to outscore him.
Lane Kiffin. Who would have thought that fuck up was the dude that was going to like turn Alabama's program around for Saban?
Yeah, and it's weird. It's before maybe about 10-ish years ago, it was college football was modeling after the NFL. And then now the NFL offense, at least, is modeling after college offenses a little bit more. So I know he said college football, but it still applies to the NFL game. And I'll give you some stats, okay? I gave you some stats, with Marcus earlier, but look at the teams that made the playoffs last year, okay? So the Super Bowl was Tampa Bay and Kansas City. So Tampa Bay was the third most points scored in the league. KC was 6.
Yep.
The teams that lost from the conference championships, Green Bay was the first point scored, and Buffalo was second. You take a look at the divisional round, you have the Rams with the aberration because their defense is just so much better than everyone else's. 23rd ranked offense, but New Orleans is 5, Baltimore is 7. Then you have Cleveland with another really good defense, was 22nd. The wild card teams that lost, Seattle was 8, Washington with a good defense, and the terrible division was 25th, but Indiana 9, Tennessee 4, Pittsburgh 12, Chicago, I don't know how the fuck they got in, but at 22nd. But you see most of the top 10 up and down is in the playoffs because they score the points. And the top 4 teams were 6 and up.
Yeah, I mean, it's, no brainer. You want the offense to take over, right? Like you want the offense to be better and better. And also it was like an abnormally offensively great season for the NFL. Like you saw that how like the points per game were so nuts. Like the Raiders gave up more points per game than ever in the history of the franchise. Yeah, the defense was terrible, but it was also every other offense was like fireworks, firing on all cylinders. And I think that's kind of taken over. And you've seen, it's so much hard. Like it's impossible now to call an offensive lineman for holding these days. You can't even touch a quarterback anymore. Like all the same tripes we've heard over and over again,
tough.
right? So it's like
the RPOs now, that's tough.
It's the focus. It's the focus on the offense by the NFL and the rule changes that's kind of like put the offense in the driver's seat a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? Like if your offense is phenomenal, like if you're scoring a lot of points, like your chances of going there are gonna be better.
So see, these are my 2 big takeaways from that clip. Gruden needs to adjust his philosophy. he needs to adjust his philosophy. He needs to be like, we need to outscore these guys. So him being so conservative in the red zone and being okay with kicking field goals and shit like that, like Marcus said, you're down 10, you kick a field goal, great job. No, we need fucking touchdowns. And there's that, and there's, because it's a two-way street there. It's not just all Gruden and it's not just all Cars. They do both have some measure of some responsibility here. Gruden's calling the plays and Carr's executing, right? And I don't want I'm not saying he has this, but I don't want there to be well, I did my job mentality. I did what I was told to do, even though, like, one of my criticisms earlier and even during the season is, your defense is shit. You need to take more chances down the field and try to put up more points and not just stick for these field goals, because we're getting outscored 7-3, even if we have a good drive. And I think that's an adjustment that Gruden and Carr need to make together, because Saban is absolutely right. The way the rules are now, you can't touch receivers down the field. You can't touch quarterbacks. Holding's not called very much. It's tough for the defense to stop consistently. To have a good defense, you have to create a lot of turnovers. But that's my big takeaway. Those two big things right there from that clip.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm 100% on board that, like, you've got to go balls to the wall because your defense is bad. I do understand the philosophy. It's like, let's just do 10, 12 play drives and keep their offense off the field, right? Let's keep our terrible defense off the field, at least keep them rested. Like, let's just try to play ball control as best we can. I understand the philosophy, just kind of like to shorten the game a little bit. But there's no doubt about it. Like, get better in the red zone. Touchdowns are better than field goals. Like, there's no like philosophy change there at all. So
there is a philosophy change, because if you're preaching, throw the ball away, check it down, especially getting close, even just outside the red zone, you need to be taking those shots into the end zone, man. You're kind of like, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, well, why'd you have a lot of, we ran our offense, they're really good in the red zone. They're really good red zone defenses. Like,
I'm just not buying that Gruden's offensive philosophy is what's holding this team back, right? Like, even with a number one wide receiver coming out of nowhere in Nelson Aguilar, even with the offensive line underperforming and being hurt all season long, and Raiders were still a top 10 offense, right? Like, they overcame a lot to still be a real, their first round pick Ruggs disappeared. Brian Edwards, their third round pick, didn't kind of disappeared. Josh Jacobs got hurt again. Like, they overcame a lot and still put together an amazing offense. So I don't know if our offensive mindset needs a massive overhaul.
I never said that either.
Okay.
I didn't say a massive overhaul. I said the philosophy needs to be changed. And I only said a couple of things that need to change. Look more down the field and be more aggressive in the red zone, because of course, every season is different, but let's not be naive here. We knew that our defense was not going to be great or even good last year. We knew it. We knew that it's pretty much the same guys coming in, the same defensive coordinator. We knew they were going to be that defense. Knew it too. We knew what they were. Okay, let's just be honest with ourselves. We knew what they were. Okay,
they were who we thought they were.
And it's that the ball control thing didn't work the year before, and I don't know, man. Maybe I'm talking out of my ass. I probably am. I would just like I would rather go down swinging than write out a decision. That's just me.
Okay. You want to do some what up Windbags?
Sure, why not?
We had a lot from our last episode, and I wish I could do every single one of them where they were dumping on you, Soto, but there just wasn't enough time. We just don't have enough. That would be an entire podcast. I'll just pick a couple. So I kept it pretty tight. We'll do our regular 3. Your bio dad said, if Mahomes or Brady had the worst defense every year, they wouldn't make the playoffs either. Brady left the Pats because they didn't have a team around him, so he left. Carr's no different and just needs the same thing as them. Because we were talking about, other quarterbacks and how Carr would do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, it's true, right? Like, would Brady come to the Raiders? Like, no, not with that defense. Like,
To an extent, it's true. To say that Carr is no different than Brady and Mahomes, that's not factually correct.
Well, no difference in the sense that if they had as bad of a defense as the Raiders, they'd be sitting at home in January as well.
The thing is, from my perspective and the way I think, and we're just talking about this right now, when you have a quick strike offense, the defense has to take a little bit more chances from the opposing team, and it forces the opposing offense to have to quick strike as well. Because oh man, these guys are putting up points. We got to do this. We got to do that. That also gives your defense a more of a chance to get turnovers because the opposing offense is being a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah.
So in that respect, you're having a quick strike offense helps your defense out as well because it makes the other team be more aggressive and higher potential to make mistakes. So would a Brady or a Mahomes on the Raiders make the defense a little bit better because the opposing offenses are going to have to push more and probably make some more mistakes? It can be argued that way, and you can never know for sure. But you know, there's an argument to be made for that.
Akuma code. I find myself agreeing with Soto on stuff about the team, but not when it comes to Derek Carr. LOL.
I love it.
I don't understand where this came from, but why is there an expectation on Derek Carr to change Jon Gruden? Gruden is not Carr's responsibility, because you said on the last show how Gruden's exactly, then you wanted Derek Carr to go into his office and say like, hey, you got to light that fire under your ass. And I'm like, you want Derek Carr to tell Jon Gruden, like to motivate Jon Gruden? Like, it didn't make sense to me. Every
Top quarterback, Brady, Mahomes, Rodgers, fucking even the young guys like fucking Josh Allen, and even Rich Gannon got in when he got into Gruden's face. They all get into their coordinators or head coaches' faces when they don't agree with something. The problem that I have is Carr it seems to be more than okay with being this check down guy that we all agree is a little bit too check down heavy. It seems like I'm just going to go along to get along. I'm going to give him what he wants, even though I know we need to score touchdowns. I'm just going to throw the ball out of the end zone because 3 points is better than 0. Well, 3 points is not as good as 7 or 6. And Marcus said it when he was here. He was throwing the ball deeper, but it didn't translate in the red zone. If you don't agree with something, let them know. And the problem that I have is I don't think Carr is disagreeing with Gruden, even though the results aren't there. That's the issue that I have, because all these quarterbacks that we've mentioned, we've all seen them yelling at coordinators and their head coaches. Gannon and fucking Gruden used to fucking scream at each other. Mm-hmm. Because Gannon was more of a fucking gunslinger than we give him credit for. He was throwing the ball down the field. And I just think it needs to happen more. I think in the NFL, you need to be able to have a quick strike offense. But that's I think what having to this whole week to kind of chew on it. What I was talking about last week, that's what I meant more, is challenge Gruden more to be more aggressive.
So what you're saying is you retract your current statement and you adjust it because you felt you were wrong and Akuma code called you out.
Akuma code didn't call me out.
That's what I heard you say.
Because Derek Carr needs to change Jon Gruden. Well, yeah, he's the one on the field, and he's the one that needs to change Jon Gruden's philosophy to be a little bit more open, like your butt cheeks.
Kyle Taducci. Gruden's first year was a teardown, trades Mack and Cooper. His second year was really the first year of his rebuild, and with the worst defense in the league was the late season collapse away from the postseason. Third season, second year of the rebuild, we got slightly better. Again, late season collapse away from playoffs. Gruden has it set up for the playoffs this year. I'd give him a B, because we asked BD Williams last week, what grade did you give Jon Gruden? So I completely agree with Kyle on one thing, but I need a clarification on the other.
Okay.
I do like the direction that Jon Gruden is taking us, despite the fact that our results have been poor. You always want to judge something by what it's done in the past, because you can't predict the future, right? And so, like, when you look at what Jon Gruden's done, you're like, okay, it's not very successful. but it's all trending in the right direction. So if you're like, all right, let's say like we could fire Jon Gruden today, right? Like I wouldn't fire Jon Gruden today because I despite his poor results, I like the direction it's going. On the flip side, though, Kyle sounds like he's giving Gruden a pass for the rebuild. No one made Gruden rebuild the Raiders. That wasn't something that had to be done. Like you could take what you like on the team and trade what you don't, but he wanted to kind of build the team in his own image. And I understand that, right? 10-year contract. I'm in it for the long haul. I'm not just going to try to like
win with someone else's team,
make chop suey and try to be good, try to be, 9-7 next season. It's like, no, I don't, if we lose early, fine, but I'm building this long-term because I'm here long-term. So I do understand his philosophy, but he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to implode the team. Like they were a playoff team 2 seasons before, right? With a lot of that team still intact. So yes, I'm with Kyle that like I like where Gruden is going, but the idea that like, well, he gets a pass because it was a rebuild. Rebuild's on him as much as that. Yeah. Like
if you're gonna rebuild, you better reload, right? You better get some pieces that are going to be at least comparable to what you had in the past. You don't have anything near Khalil Mack on the team right now. You don't have anything near fucking Cooper on the team right now. I mean, that plays the position, Waller, but he's tight end. So if you're going to trade these guys away, you got to fill them with something comparable, maybe even in the conversation, and they don't have that. And those are 2 of the big areas of need for the team. The sacks and the defense, with Mack, and consistency with our number 1 wide receiver, and we've just keep bouncing around from guy to guy to see who's going to step up. And so for that, I would give him a terrible F because he failed miserably in sending guys away who were top flight talent. You have a top 5 defender in the league, regardless of position, and a top 10 wide receiver in the league, and you just ship them off and you get good stuff back. When we look how Cooper's played since he went to Dallas. Look at what have you got? What did you get with the forget about what did you get for the picks. It's what have you done to replace those holes that you created by shipping those guys off, and not much.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what we get next season. But until then,
looking forward to a better season.
Looking forward to a better season. And with that, knock on wood if you're with me. Hey, Windbags, if you want Darren Waller to catch 20 touchdown passes this season, don't be afraid to click those subscribe, like, share, and comment buttons. Plus, your comment could be featured in the next What Up, Windbags?